like 18 degrees in Boston, so I think maybe we have the best tea party.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming today. This is great. I do want to thank the organizers, Bruce Bullock and Rick Harnoy and Elizabeth Rogers. They and that meetup group, give them a hand. I'm a little bit confused about my history, but I thought Indians didn't have blonde hair. I've seen some blonde Indians around here. Is that very accurate in history? But there's a lot of our history that I think we have forgotten. And unfortunately, some of the things that we fought for and institutionalized back at the time of the Revolution, I'm afraid we have forgotten about it. And I think that's what this campaign is all about, is to renew our faith and confidence and understanding about our original revolution, what it was all about. Campaign, and I have never been reluctant to admit that at the beginning I was quite reluctant. I was quite skeptical, and I see a lot of times on campaign trail signs that go up that says that I have removed their skepticism. But let me tell you, you have removed my apathy, and no, you have removed my apathy, and you have helped me get rid of my skepticism. I am much more optimistic now than I was 12 months ago. The great part about the campaign, of course, is that there were a lot more people who cared and were concerned, and I really didn't know how many there would be. But the other great thing is how many young people have joined us. That is great. Admonition I've had as I go around the country, because we've had a lot of enthusiasm like this, is that you put a lot of work and a lot of energy and time into this, that you ought to do it and you ought to have fun, and it looks like we're having some fun here today. But it is also a little disheartening. Sometimes the media doesn't exactly treat us as we would like them to treat us. And sometimes they'll say, well, we who believe as we do, we're the radicals and we're on the fringe and we're the extremists. But I think our country has been taken over by the extremists, and we need to get our country back. That's happened on the campaign trail is the amount of the enthusiasm and how positive it is. Even though we do talk a lot about our problems are our foreign policy, our economic problems, our monetary problems, the infringements of our personal liberties, and it's a lot of problems that we have to discuss. And yet, there's so much enthusiasm and it's so positive, and everybody is upbeat, and that to me is very, very encouraging. And at times they will report in the paper, that I think just recently I read, the Ron Paul and his people are always so angry and so negative. And I get to thinking, now, isn't it strange? We have an upbeat campaign, a lot of enthusiasm, everything is positive. Somebody coined a term, with the sign, which was not ours, but somebody started it, and they call it the Ron Paul, and they have the love revolution in there. Pretty positive, I would say. Hope for America, and it's very positive. And then we talk also about peace and freedom and prosperity, and they turn that into saying that we're all negative. Figure that one out. But no, our message that we're delivering, and the message of freedom. It's a message that has made America great. There's no reason to be negative, and there's no reason to be pessimistic if we do the right things. Now, if we don't do anything, I think we better be concerned. And it could turn into a lot of anger and upset and frustration. And that's what we're trying to prevent. Because if we do nothing, this country is facing some serious, serious problems. We're facing a bankruptcy in this country and the destruction of our dollar. Now that's serious business. But how do you solve that problem? Is it difficult? No, I think an 8th grader has already figured it out a lot better than they have in Washington, D.C. When you need money, you're not allowed to print it. You're not supposed to be able to do that. Print money, you know, we get into a little trouble and they call it counterfeiting. But here we have been over these many, many decades that we've allowed our governments to spend endlessly, run up these deficits, they tax us to the hilt, and then they borrow as much as they can, then they still don't have enough money, and then we allow them, because we have not stood up to them, we have allowed them to just print the money, which is the inflation, which has to be stopped if we want to protect our economy and the value of our dollar. Very early on, the very first time I ran for office was a long time ago. In 1974, I talked about the monetary issue. I still talk about it, but this is the first time it's gotten significant attention, and it's a significant attention in a national presidential election. We're making progress because it has become so necessary. You can't even open the financial pages today without reading about the falling dollar, the cost of living going up. Just this very week, we saw wholesale prices going up 3% in 1 month, and our retail prices are going up now at a 10% rate, and our government tells us that there's we only have an inflation rate of 2%. Don't worry about it. But there is reason to worry about it. It's because our government has gotten out of control. We have allowed the spending to excessive means, and we have to get it under control. And if you want to deal with the monetary policy, if you want to get rid of the inflation, we have to look to the Constitution. It's not that complicated. The Constitution said only gold and silver can be legal tender, and we're not allowed to print money, which means that we would get rid of the Federal Reserve System. You know, there was an argument during the Constitutional Convention, very early in our history, between Jefferson and Hamilton. Hamilton wanted the central bank, Jefferson did not. We ended up with the first bank that Hamilton established, Jefferson got rid of it. They got a second bank, and then Jackson got rid of it. Let's look forward to the day that we have another president who will get rid of this central bank. Simply just bad policy and a bad understanding of economics that we have this type of monetary system. This system is devised to serve special interests. It doesn't serve the common man, because the common person, the middle class, if you look at all of history on monetary policy, when you have inflation, when you destroy a currency and you have persistent inflation, you have a very small middle class. You have a huge poor class, and you have a large rich class. And this is what happens. The middle class gets wiped out. People are driven into poverty. And we're in the midst of this now because the average person is having a hard time paying their bills. At the same time, we have more billionaires than ever before. They said, well, there's still no inflation. Yes, there's a lot of inflation. They're printing that money. Go buy gasoline. I think the prices have gone up on gasoline. What about medical care costs? What about education? What about our heating bills? It's endless. Our cost of living is going up. Our government says only 2%. So they give the Social Security beneficiaries 2% raise. At the same time, they're having a 10% increase. So their standard of living has to go down. And that is why people are not feeling good about the economy. And it's not going to get better until we get control of this situation. Here, here.